So Trent in his video uses quotes from Justin Martyr and Tertullian in order to argue against oneness theology, which is basically a modern iteration of Sabellianism or modalism. While it's true these two church fathers don't teach oneness theology, and in the case of Tertullian, he clearly argues against it, Trent shoots himself in the foot because they also don't teach the understanding of the Trinity that Trent believes, which is the later understanding that was promoted by Augustine. As I explained in my video on the Thoughtful Faith YouTube channel, by the time of Justin Martyr, Christianity had already become highly Hellenized, meaning that early Christian apologists and fathers like Justin Martyr accepted and intermixed Middle Platonic elements with Christian doctrine and teaching. An example of a Platonic element that was mixed with Christianity is that of the difference between the transcendence of God, or the One, and that of the Logos. The Jewish Middle Platonist Philo of Alexandria shows this distinction.
Why is it that he speaks as if of some other God, saying that he made man after the image of God, and not that he made him after his own image? Very appropriately, and without any falsehood, was this oracular sentence uttered by God, for no mortal thing could have been formed on the similitude of the Supreme Father of the universe, but only after the pattern of the second deity, who is the Word of the Supreme Being. Since it is fitting that the rational soul of man should bear it the type of the divine Word, since in his first word God is superior to the most rational possible nature. But he who is superior to the Word holds his rank in a better and most singular preeminence. And how could the creature possibly exhibit a likeness of him in himself?
Here we clearly see that the Logos is in the second rank, not simply because there are two, but because the Logos is a lesser transcendence than the Supreme Father, which is the only reason man can be made after the Logos image. This view is coined subordinationism, seeing that the Word is less than or subordinate to the Father. Both Justin Martyr and Tertullian hold this view. Trent doesn't, and would actually say holding this view is heretical. Yet in his video, he quotes these two fathers as defending the Trinity and passing on the true rule of faith from the apostles.
But even by the early 2nd century, Justin Martyr was teaching that the Son and the Father are distinct persons. He cites Genesis 1:26, "Let us make man in our image," to show that, quote, "we can indisputably learn that God conversed with someone who is numerically distinct from himself and also a rational being." Justin also says, "He who is said to have appeared to Abraham and to Jacob and to Moses, and who is called God, is distinct from him who made all things, numerically, I mean, not distinct in will." Not only did the first Christians believe in the Trinity and not espouse oneness theology, they explicitly rejected the oneness heresy. In the 3rd century, heretics like Praxeas and Sabellius advocated for modalism, though Praxeas later recanted it as heresy. Pope Dionysius and several regional councils condemned their errors, and Tertullian said of the Trinity, "This rule of faith has come down to us from the beginning of the gospel, even before any of the older heretics, much more before Praxeas, a pretender of yesterday."
Well, Trent is right that Justin and Tertullian teach a numerical distinction of persons in God. They don't teach the modern Trinitarian dogma that the begotten Word, God the Son, is equally transcendent and co-equal with the Father. You can see this clearly in the reasoning that Justin later gives to justify the quote Trent shared.
Yet, as has already been proved to you by the passages previously quoted, it will not be the Creator of all things that is the God that said to Moses that he was the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. But it will be He, the Word, who has been proved to you to have appeared to Abraham, ministering to the will of the Maker of all things, and likewise carrying into execution his counsel in the judgment of Sodom, so that even though it be as you say, that there were two, an angel and God, he who has but the smallest intelligence will not venture to assert that the Maker and Father of all things, having left all supercelestial matters, was visible on a little portion of the earth.
As Justin explains here, the God that appeared to Abraham and others wasn't the Father, because anyone with the smallest intelligence would know that the transcendent God wouldn't be visible on a little portion of earth. In other words, the Son or the Logos being less than the Father can be visible on earth. Tertullian, in order to argue why modalism is false, uses the same reasoning as Justin, namely that the Father can't be seen, but the Son can be.
Moreover, there comes to our aid when we insist upon the Father and the Son as being two, that regulating principle which has determined God to be invisible. Now then, he must be a different being who was seen, because of one who was seen it could not be predicated that he is invisible. It will therefore follow that by him who is invisible, we must understand the Father in the fullness of his majesty, while we recognize the Son as visible by reason of the dispensation of his derived existence, even as it is not permitted us to contemplate the Son in the full amount of his substance which is in the heavens, but we can only endure with our eyes a ray, by reason of the tempered condition of this portion which is projected from him to the earth.
Tertullian later continues,
It was of him, the Father, too, that he had said in a previous passage, Now unto the King eternal, immortal, invisible, to the only God, so that we might apply even the contrary qualities to the Son himself, mortality, accessibility, of whom the Apostle testifies that he died according to the Scriptures, and that he was seen by himself last of all, by means, of course, of the light which was accessible, although it was not without imperiling his sight that he experienced that light. If they who were unable to endure the glory of the Son had only seen the Father, they must have died then and there. For no man shall see God and live. This being the case, it is evident that he was always seen from the beginning, who became visible in the end, and that he, on the contrary, was not seen in the end who had never been visible from the beginning, and that accordingly there are two, the visible and the invisible.
It's clear that both Justin Martyr and Tertullian believed that the begotten Word was of a lesser transcendence than the Father, which allowed him to do the things the Father couldn't. Tertullian even argues that the Father could never have become incarnate like the Son did.
Surely even these things could not have been believed even of the Son of God, unless they had been given us in the Scriptures. Possibly also they could not have been believed of the Father, even if they had been given in the Scriptures, since these men bring him down into Mary's womb, and set him before Pilate's judgment seat, and bury him in the sepulchre of Joseph. Hence, therefore, their error becomes manifest. For being ignorant that the entire order of the divine administration has from the very first had its course through the agency of the Son, they believed that the Father himself was actually seen, and held converse with men, and worked, and was thirsty, and suffered hunger, in spite of the prophet who says, The everlasting God, the Lord, the Creator of the ends of the earth, shall never thirst at all nor be hungry. Much more shall neither die at any time, nor be buried.
The modern understanding of the Trinity that Trent claims you must believe to be a Christian, namely that the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit are co-equal and co-transcendent in every way, completely contradicts both Justin Martyr and Tertullian. Such a belief destroys Justin's whole reasoning as to why the Jews should believe Christ is God. Likewise, such a belief destroys Tertullian's whole argument made against modalism, namely, because there are things that can be said of and done by the lesser transcendent Son that can't be said of or done by the transcendent Father, they must ultimately be two distinct persons. If Trent claims that oneness theology is a heresy because it doesn't follow the supposed rule of faith passed on by the apostles, how is the later development in Trinitarian theology that rejects the earlier subordinationism not also a heresy?